It is very common for many of us, many of you, my dear friends, to try to opine, to try to pull into consideration what are the various factors that affect our life and what affects the issue anent and regarding Candace Owens. And oftentimes I will hear Satanism, satanic, Luciferian, evil, demonic, but I don't hear enough about the Antichrist. And I submit to you, dear friend, that one of the most fascinating issues is that of the Antichrist. Research this. Become familiar with the concept of it. Because this is, in essence, Candace Owens against the Antichrist. And sometimes when we posit a particular way of thinking, it's an alternative way of thinking. It's not necessarily a prescription for reality, but a means by which, a matrix or a template that we can analyze something. You see, in this world that we live in, which we feel is absolutely spinning out of control towards chaos, and don't forget, the opposite of chaos, cosmos. One voice keeps rising above the noise, at least in our particular worldview, and that's Candace Owens. I'm telling you right now, words like bold, unapologetic, brave, intrepid, increasingly willing to name what many only whisper about in the dark. But what if her growing list of powerful enemies isn't just political? What if, hear me out, what if the forces aligning against her point to something far darker, something prophesied for thousands of years? Think about this. This would be, in essence, the very eerie story, the macabre story, like Franz, of Candace Owens versus the Antichrist. Let's talk about the history. What is the Antichrist? The concept of the Antichrist. And by the way, as a student, as an alumnus of the Catholic school, parochial school system in the 60s and 70s, I was never really made familiar with and of and regarding the Antichrist. I just never was. But the notion of it, now that I read about it, stretches back deep into biblical prophecy. The term itself appears only in the epistles of John in the New Testament. In 1 John 2:18, for those of you playing along at home, this is the only time it's mentioned. It says, quote, this is a quote, "Children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come." That's it. And John distinguishes between many Antichrists, get that TS out, who are deceivers already active. Because remember, the key here is deception. The multiple Antichrist and the ultimate Antichrist, who is a singular figure of ultimate deception. Okay, so you've got the apostles and you've got the whatever you want to call them, and then you have the biggie, the big daddy. Okay, now again, the history is important. Early church fathers expanded this dramatically. Irenaeus, in the 2nd century, described a coming, this is the quote, "man of lawlessness who would be born of the tribe of Dan." I love this. "Sit in a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem and demand worship as God." Hippolytus and Tertullian built on this, painting him as a false Messiah who would mimic Christ's miracles, but serve Satan. And medieval writers like Adzo of Montier-Endir, Adzo, how about that, ADSO in the 10th century, created the classic biography. The Antichrist would be born to a virgin, but through demonic means, rise through politics, control economies, persecute believers for 3.5 years, and ultimately be destroyed by Christ at his return. Oh, yes. It's so, the history is lush. The book of Daniel and 2 Thessalonians add chilling, scary details. He will, here's the quote, speak great words against the Most High. He would change laws and times and exalt himself above every god. Revelation 13 describes the beast rising from the sea, charismatic, given authority by the dragon, who is Satan, with a mouth speaking blasphemies. The whole world will marvel and worship him, except those whose names are in the book of life. Throughout history, people have tried to name him. Nero, various popes during the Reformation, Napoleon, Hitler, even modern leaders, but the pattern is always the same. This is careful. A figure who promises peace, unity, and salvation through human systems while waging war on, among other things, truth, and especially biblical truth. And this is so interesting because, and again, I think one of the things which fascinates me is the rich, and again, I keep using the word lush. I loved this, the prose, the literature of Satan. I'm not satanic or anything, but I remember as a kid thinking, this stuff is great. And for those who are new converts to Catholicism, please learn this too. I used to kind of jokingly say, not disrespectfully, but it was Dungeons and Dragons set to modern times. Now, let's look at the eerie pattern of this today. Fast forward to 2026, okay? Here's a connection. Candace Owens has become one of the most polarizing and censored voices in media. She challenges, among other things, inter alia, as we say, mainstream narratives on politics, on culture, faith, family, global power structures, communication matrices, and she has openly called out what she sees as satanic influences in high places. She questions official stories. She deep dives and digs into conspiracy territory. And she refuses to bow to institutional pressure. That might be one of the reasons why I respect her the most. And then suddenly, the opposition feels coordinated. Legal battles, character assassination, platform restrictions, stovepiping, cherry picking, shadow banning, you name it, and whispers among the elite circles. Be not mistaken, she poses a formidable threat to the powers that be, and they don't like her. Not because of what she says, but what she represents. So is this just all politics? Or is there something more ancient stirring? And here's where it gets really kind of eerie and spooky. The Antichrist spirit is described as one of deception and control and false unity. It hates genuine truth tellers because they expose the lie. They illuminate the mendacity. Candace's trajectory mirrors the biblical pattern of those who resist the beast system. Listen carefully. They face intense backlash precisely because they adamantly refuse, the mark, metaphorically or literally, the mark of compromise. Consider the characteristics. Are you catching on? Charismatic deception. Modern power often hides behind polished PR celebrities. And humanitarian globalism. The Antichrist will be the ultimate version, it is believed, and I think this is consistent, the ultimate version of this. There's the war on the saints. Scripture says he will make war on the saints and prevail against them for a time. Not, physical swords and mace and everything, but cancellation, financial ruin, reputational destruction. Then there's the issue of the control of the narrative. In Revelation, no one can buy or sell without the mark. Today, that looks like, wait for it, algorithmic suppression, debanking, digital exclusion for those who speak against the prevailing agenda. You see, think of what I'm saying. Everything is, this is because those who they make this mistake, not only regarding biblical history, but history in general. They think, well, that was then. No, the underlying foundation of this applies today. It's up to you to see how it plays out. See, Candace has faced defamation suits. She's lost major alliances. She's been painted as everything from dangerous to unhinged for questioning official stories, the official narrative, including high-profile events in 2025. Her absolute unmitigated willingness to link spiritual darkness to earthly power and power structures makes her a target. And you thought it was just about what? You think this was about what? Brigitte Macron? You think that was it? Do you think people in this country, pardon me, give a shit about Brigitte Macron? Come on. Do you really think people love Erica Kirk? No, that's not it. They point to that as the manifestation of their derision. That's not it, though. The spirit of Antichrist doesn't tolerate light in the darkness. And anybody who comes forward and seems to illuminate the areas, you're targeted. We don't like you. We don't like your independent spirit. And we don't like the way you act. So why is Candace hit specifically? Why? Well, she's a black conservative woman who left the progressive plantation, converted to Christianity or Catholicism, deepened her faith publicly, unabashedly, and now uses her platform to defend Western civilization and, among other things, traditional values, and crucially, to call out what she perceives as anti-Christian forces. By the way, who also is doing that? Who will find himself in the same fate as Tucker Carlson. He repeatedly says this isn't Christian, or sometimes he'll say this isn't Western. Think about this. A black woman, and I only bring up the race because, and I can only speak for me, her race is irrelevant. It never comes up. Just as her height, what am I, a Cockney? Her height, whether she's right or left-handed, I don't know. Her astrological sign, I don't know. That doesn't come up as well. But her race, people look at her and they're saying, believe in it, you defile your social status, your position. You're a woman and you're black and you're speaking, you're echoing the resolve and the maxim and the various intellectual platforms of the white man. Ooh, you will pay for this. Don't think they're not out there. But she calls out, again, what she perceives as anti-Christian forces. And that combination, think about what I'm saying, is lethal to any emerging beast system that relies on identity politics, moral relativism, and centralized control. She poses a threat. And you thought it was about what? Erica Kirk? TPUSA, Mikey, what's his name? These names, forgive me. Listen to me. The individual players of TPUSA, irrelevant, interstitial, kind of a epoxy that just kind of holds together. They're like awful. They're not ligature. They're ligaments. They're connective tissue. But it's fun. but they mean nothing to me. They are like drier lint. They're remnants. They're chankings. And anyway, the Antichrist is prophesied to broker false peace. Think about this. Perhaps in the Middle East, while consolidating global power. Candace has been vocal on, she said this, Israel, Zionism, and related and attendant politics, geopolitics, putting her directly in the crosshairs of narratives that some believe are paving the way for end times deception. Now we get really good here. This is eschatological. This is the end of times. This is the, dare I say, the cosmic denouement, the valedictory message. She's getting in the way. She's tampering with us. Oh, man. Let me go back again. Do you think anybody gives a shit about Brigitte Macron or TPUSA or Erica Kirk? Do you think that's what this is? Do you think that's what this is? Do you think the threat that she plays or poses, along with as well as Charlie, and I'm not suggesting some hit by virtue of no. Remember, pick the hill you want to die on. Pick the area you want to make your mark on. Remember that, children. Her style, brutal, fearless investigation. She connects dots and nobody even knew. We didn't even know where the dots were. Dots that others won't. Hollywood occultism, elite bloodlines, intel gathering overreach, cultural Marxism, all as spiritual warfare. Oh my God. See, this is exactly the kind of discernment that directly and absolutely exposes the mystery of iniquity, as Paul warned about in 2 Thessalonians. Isn't that a wonderful phrase? The mystery of iniquity. And it's kind of spooky. Well, eerie how the pushback escalates the more she speaks. When figures like Candace Owens gain traction, the system reacts as if threatened at its core. Is this a coincidence? Or some kind of prophetic, Vedic, Pythonic pattern? Is she reading the entrails of the beast? Is she auguring the future? The spiritual dimension of this is fascinating. The Bible, and I'm not a scholar, but as I have read others who are say, the Bible is clear. The spirit of the Antichrist is already at work. In 1 John 4:3, it's not waiting for one man. It operates through many today. Media that mocks faith and governments that redefine reality. What do I mean? Biology, family, morality, sexuality, and technologies that track and control populations. I mean, this, if you want to go back to Mark of the Beast, if you really want to go back, that's what this is. To be marked, to be tagged, to be followed, to be penned, to be corralled, to be hunted. You're a beast of burden. You're livestock. Oh man. Let me tell you something. I don't care whether you believe in God or not. It doesn't really matter. This, I don't care what this is. This is spot on. If this was Nostradamus, if this was some guy named Larry from Judea, you would say, damn, he's good. Aha, it's the Bible. What? Because people love to kind of eschew this. Do not disregard, do not cast aside biblical references and the like. See, let me tell you something. This is important. All of these technologies, all of that control populations and keep you controlled, they all carry the scent of this. Candace Owens represents a resistance. Not a perfect resistance, no human is, but a loud refusal to kneel, to bow, to subjugate, to give in. In that sense, her story becomes symbolic. One woman standing against international principalities and powers of evil and not so evil, but pretty evil. See, the full breakdown reveals a chilling timeline. As global events accelerate, listen, wars, economic tumult, economic instability, moral collapse, The stage is being set, my friends. The Antichrist won't appear with horns and a pitchfork. I don't know where that came from. By the way, that, believe it or not, that was added later on. They stole that from Pan and from pagan. No. The Antichrist will come as a savior. A savior. Now think about this. Think of the manifestations of this. Smooth, brilliant, promising safety in exchange for allegiance. Those who warn early, those who admonish early, like watchmen on the wall, always face the fiercest attacks. You only get flack when you're over the target. And Candace's growing isolation from former allies, her relentless media hit pieces, her seeming okay with her acceptance of being alone. She enjoys it. And the legal warfare, all of this fit the pattern early and eerily well. So what comes next? If biblical prophecy holds, the opposition will intensify like you haven't believed, but so will the awakening. More voices will rise, yours, mine, others. More people will see through the deception. And Candace Owens versus the Antichrist isn't just, clickbait drama. It has an interesting style to it. It's a microcosm of the eternal, persistent battle between truth and the father of lies. Whether she's literally facing the final Antichrist or a powerful precursor or an antecedent spirit, we don't know. But her stand echoes the call in Revelation. Quote, "Come out of her, my people. The clock is ticking. Discernment is everything." So stay awake. Test every spirit and watch figures like Candace. Watch her. Because in opposing, this is critical, in opposing the darkness, they may be showing us exactly where the real fight lies. Whenever I bring this up to people, they will immediately fight me. They will immediately say, "You're taking this too far." Really? You're enjoying some kind of an obsession with Candace. With Candace? No. Candace may be one of many, but in this assembly line of change, hers is the more drastic. I've never seen anything like this. There is not one person I have seen that poses this kind of threat. Nobody. This is different. Pay very close attention. See, sometimes life and health, they give you symptoms. Things start off, very rarely do lethal diseases start off with, you just wake up dead, maybe a massive heart attack. But aside from that, no, not really. Sometimes it's a rash. Sometimes it's a fever. Sometimes it's not feeling right. Every indication, every indicium, every particular symptom attendant and associated with Candace is showing, watch her. And the sad part is, be not confused or sidelined or stifled or shunted by the idiots who don't understand the criticality of her message. They don't get this. They think you've got some obsession, maybe some, I don't know, some attraction to her. They always will do everything they can to avoid the truth. Because here's the problem. Let me see if you can rephrase this. If they're wrong, so what? It'll happen again. Won't be the first time. But if we're right, if what I'm saying is right, if 10% of what I am saying is right, think about what this means. No. Think about this. Everything that you thought about being present. We sometimes worry more about Marxian, contamination than this. But this is something which is, because you always want, people believe in this notion of demonic, satanic. I'm saying this is different. This is not about the devil, diabolico, per se. This is something more diabolical. This is something that lures with deception. Think about what I'm saying. You think it's crazy? You think what I'm saying is what? Not possible? Do you think so? Do you really think so?